Good day, everyone, and welcome to another OpenText Customer Experience webinar. Today, we'll be discussing the CCM to CXM transformation. That is, customer communication management to customer experience management, and why it's so important for organizations right now. My name is Janet de Guzman. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing at OpenText. Today, we're joined by an expert panel from diverse backgrounds to dig into this interesting topic. First, I'd like to welcome Casper Roos, founder and CEO of Aspire. Hi, Casper. Please tell the audience a little bit about yourselves and Aspire. Casper, you're on mute. Perhaps while Casper is working on his audio, I'd love to introduce Pradeep, and we'll loop back to Casper. We have also with us Pradeep Kamalanaban, Global Head of Enterprise Content Management for Banking and Financial Services at Tata Consulting. Hi, Pradeep.
Hello, Janet. Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here, Janet. Like you introduced, my name is Pradeep. I'm from TCS. I head the ECM business for TCS in the BFSI unit globally. Looking forward to this conversation with Casper and Will and yourselves. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us, Pradeep, this morning. And then our third panelist with us is Will Cook, a colleague of mine at OpenText and Senior Manager Solutions Consulting. Will, please tell our audience a little bit about what you do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Will Cook. I lead our solutions consulting business across Northern Europe. So we help, as a team of experts, our customers improve their customer engagement. You may have detected a slight Yankee accent, but I'm in fact based in the UK.
Thank you, Will. Great that you're with us this morning as well. And so I'm going to loop back to Casper and see if he's with us.
Yes, can you hear me, Jenna?
We sure can, Casper. We sure can.
Good. Yeah, I think my AirPods dropped somehow. Okay, good. Yeah, so thanks. My name is Casper Roos. I'm the founder of Aspire. We're a industry analyst firm and as well as a strategic consultancy company. So we do a lot of research. We sort of, are, I think, sort of thought leaders in this space. So we provide a lot of sort of, forward-looking perspectives, but also helping clients with sort of, the strategy there to sort of make this all a reality. So very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Terrific. And on behalf of OpenText, we love working with Pradeep and with Casper on all things customer experience. And so we're delighted to have such a terrific panel this morning. So with that, let's get started. Here at OpenText, our research and analysts and customers are telling us that as technology and customer expectations continue to evolve, the way businesses communicate with their customers is also changing. The future of customer communication management is likely to be shaped by a number of trends that are impacting those organizations' ability to deliver superior customer experiences. Casper, I'd love to start with you. What is happening in industry right now, and how is CCM evolving?
Yeah, great question. So let me next slide here. So first of all, I think a big key trend that we're seeing right now is digital transformation, right? So lots of businesses are digitally transforming themselves. And if you sort of look at the CCM space, I always like to sort of look at the sort of transactional communications as a sort of starting point, because the CCM industry sort of originated at that market space. So it's all about sort of, the big volume of transactional sort of documents that are shifting more to bidirectional experiences, as we know, are being complemented by those experiences. But there's still a lot of sort of static outbound sort of print there in the market space. So if you look at the statistic on the left-hand side, what you see there, this is the breakdown of all sort of transactional volume globally, and then broken down by print only. So that's the sort of light blue at the bottom. And then the darker blue is print and digital. And then the yellow is digital only. So in 2019, our sort of, panelists, our respondents from our surveys, they told us is that 31% of our transactional volume that we send, our compliance, our operational volume, is by digitally only means. So meaning only digital communications. The rest basically still has a print component. So what we saw during the pandemic was a massive acceleration of the digital increase. There are lots of statistics out there. Remember a statistic data point from McKinsey who said the amount of digital transformation that we witnessed in that single year was typically 7 times what we would see, or it would be, equally to sort of 7 years of transformation condensed into 1 year. And we see this in our data and our research as well. So a big sort of jump in digital transformation, digital adoption. Then it slowed a little bit after the pandemic because I think many businesses sort of realized, we were exposed, we had to cut some corners there, we had to sort of, take a better look at how we sort of transformed. And then when we sort of did the research, or in 2022, we found that the expectations for next year were still very high. So there's a lot of sort of latent demand or sort of interest in further digital transformation. And what I think is different this time is that now we're seeing businesses really focusing on transforming their back office processes. Whereas during the pandemic, it was all front office. It's like, we got to sort of serve our customers who are now digital. Now businesses are saying, let's sort of do a real sort of deep transformation because we need to become digital first companies. So it's a massive change that's happening in the market space quite fundamentally. And I think what is driving this are basically 5 major trends. So first of all, a lot of this comes from the consumers. They basically tell us and say, hey, we don't want to receive those sort of outdated communications. We are digital. We spend more than, sometimes 14 hours during the day online. We basically have, we're always on. We just want to have an optimized digital experience that's personalized, that we're in control of channels, that we can actually decide what to receive at what point. And businesses that cannot do that, what we see is that they actually are starting to lose customers because they go somewhere else. So actually the consumer behavior is very tied to sort of the competition that you see at number 3 there, where businesses are starting to realize, hey, we need to sort of do this because if we don't do that, our customers are going somewhere else. So those 2 sort of trends are quite fundamental. But what's very interesting as well is that we do see the regulators starting to sort of realize and say, hey, a lot of this regulatory stuff has been developed when everything is still very documented print-centric. And particularly in the UK with consumer duty, there's now really a sort of more progressive regulator that says we need to make sure that if customers are taking out complex products on their phones or using sort of digital channels, that they still are protected and that companies actually serve them and give them the right information that is accessible, that's easy to understand, really sort of apply to their customer journey. So this is a big shift that we're seeing in the market space where regulators are starting to sort of pay more attention to this. In the US, it's a little bit more driven around sort of accessibility, but also that one is starting to pick up in Europe. So regulations are a big driver here as well. And then business needs. Businesses need to digitize. They need to sort of focus on a better customer experience as well as a better now total experience. So they also need to think about how they empower their employees to get the most out of the tools that they have. So we're seeing a big sort of shift now where businesses want to sort of enable their employees to have more control over communications, but they also need to basically give the right technology and the right sort of user experience to those employees. And then lastly, there's always ongoing concerns about lower costs, minimize risk. All those aspects are not going away. They're still very important in this market space, but they're being complemented with all the other drivers that we just discussed. So where does that leave us? And this is a very critical sort of point now for this discussion here, because there's a lot of stuff out there that sort of, has been developed in silos. And what we're starting to see now is that businesses are saying, actually, to create a better customer experience, to create this total experience, we need to make sure that every time a customer interacts with the company, whether it's, on the during sort of, finding a particular product, whether it's during the selling process, whether it's the onboarding process, every time there's an interaction, we need to make sure that those communications are personalized, are optimized to where the customer is, and are consistent. I mean, consistency is very, very important in this in this sort of, time and age. So what that means is that business is starting to look more holistically about how they engage and communicate with customers. And if you sort of look at this graphic here, basically what it means is that all those sort of communications that are tied to a customer lifecycle stage need to be sort of, aligned and optimized in order to drive much better value. And what that means is, for example, we've seen sometimes businesses that when they send the welcome communications, they basically didn't know that other teams were doing that as well. So they send 3 times the same message, and then they don't communicate with the customer until sort of renewal time. And suddenly the customer is being hit with a sort of 20% price increase. And it's like, oh, I'm going well. So it's much better to say, can we sort of, orchestrate communications across sort of, the customer lifetime and make sure that we communicate and interact at moments that make sense to the customer and drive additional value. Or if we can maybe see that the communication is complex and leads to questions and call center volume, can we sort of make that communication easier to understand? And there's a lot of new technology coming in. Think about AI and think about sort of, better analytics to sort of help organizations to spot those opportunities, but also to really make content easier to digest and understand. So I think this would sort of really brings us to why this is so important to really modernize. And also there's a very powerful statistic here. In our research, what we found is that organizations who do that, who can actually create very sort of, aligned and orchestrated sort of experiences, they grow their revenues 41% faster than businesses who do not do that or cannot do that. So there is a real sort of business objective here as well. To say if you basically want to sort of grow revenue faster, you want to hit better profitability, reduce cost of serve, all those benefits basically can be obtained by focusing better on customer experience. So that, Janet, basically is a sort of introduction to sort of why this transformation is so important and what is what is driving this change that we see in the market space.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting, Casper. I know that for our research, we've also found that customer churn is really at its worst. And 1-2 bad experiences, and customers are going to take their wallets with them. Less patience with their brands than they might have had prior, thanks to that acceleration to those digital channels. And you're quite right; those business silos, really a top concern on our side that we're hearing. The lack of visibility on what's happening with the same customer across the different silos in the organization. So absolutely concurring with that. Pradeep, on the TCS side, are you agreeing with these trends and challenges that Casper's raised? And is that what your organization is seeing as well?
Absolutely. I think I totally agree with Casper's views here. We've all seen customer communications evolve over a period of time, like Casper said, from being unidirectional to bidirectional or multi-directional now. So, and the customer expectations have shifted. Especially in the financial services and insurance industry. Coming out of the pandemic, I think we've learned a lot in terms of what customers expect and the need to have a connected communication. We have seen multiple customers in the last few years realize that different units within the organization working so disjointed, not understanding the customer persona, reaching out with information which may not be relevant or appropriate to the customer at that point of time. Instances such as during the pandemic in the financial services world, we've had customers go through issues of repay of mortgage because they had no income. They had to be contacted to give them mortgage repayment holidays, and that had to be a very sensitive communication, right? In identification of those customers, profiling them, etc. So I think staying on this chart from Casper. Totally agree that having this connection, the single 360-degree view of the customer throughout the life cycle is extremely important in business today. we have seen a lot of gaps between each of those phases, right? You are able to find a customer, but you're not able to close a deal. Leads coming in through different social channels. You have products that customers are interested in, but you're not able to communicate efficiently, close the deal. Once you have sold, you are struggling to onboard customers swiftly. It takes enormous amount of time for you to get a customer onboarded. I mean, that could also lead to businesses losing a customer. Once you're onboarded, how efficiently and effectively you stay in touch through statements, through receipts, through payment confirmation, notifications, etc., is again very important, because this is the first impression you create with the customer. I've done my analysis of different products, different options available to me in the market. I choose a product. I've decided to take this partnership with a particular organization. And if my first impression in the first instance, I don't get what I typically expect as a service from the organization, is going to create a lot of issue in ensuring customer satisfactions are met. Post sale, you need to consistently stay in touch with the customer, especially when there is a concern raised. How swiftly we move to fix those concerns is very, very important. Again, we've seen a lot of customers failing, and they've got good platforms to get customers onboarded, but then when it comes to post sale service that they provide to their customer, there's been challenges. I think in our view, the customer life cycle has expanded much more than what it used to be. And we have to take into account this entire experience and what we today call as total experience. Customer communication has evolved to what we define as total experience today.
Pradeep, you're talking about the 360-degree view of the customer. It's never been more important than now. You're absolutely right. But not all organizations are doing this very well, are they, Will?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a fair statement. And if we kind of move on to this slide here, I mean, Casper talked a lot about, transformation and evolving customer expectations and meeting their needs for customer personalization. And I think this maturity model, which I'm borrowing some of Casper's work here, thanks, Casper, is a good way to kind of frame this up, right? So if you look at this slide here, it gives us a sense of the evolution of customer engagement and customer communications management. So if you start on the left with your kind of classic, CCM management approach, right? It's very document-centric. It's generally quite reactive. It's very much focused on compliance. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's where many enterprises are today, perhaps a bit behind the curve. And as the scale of their business grows and as these customer expectations rise, this drives the need for change, requiring more sophistication. So you move up the scale through customer journey management and on to customer experience management or the CXM paradigm. Which is very customer-centric, very multi-channel in nature, and is starting to meet some of those needs, not just for the customer expectation, but for some of those more complex requirements for compliance and governance that Casper also mentioned as governments react to the changing digital landscape. So I think one thing that's good for you to think about as you watch this is, where does your organization fall within this scale? And where could the value moving up this curve, what could that represent?
Well, that leads us in really nicely to our second segment here. And I'd like to pivot to the technology side of the topic with this panel. It's essential that businesses stay up to date on the trends that all three of you have raised in all areas, right? People, processes, technology. How can organizations be proactive in adopting new technologies and strategies that can help them improve their customer communication and deliver an exceptional customer experience? I know this is well, easier said than done, given like I said, like Casper and Pradeep have talked about, the evolution of the industry and the maturing and sophistication of customers with digital. Will, technology side, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Janet. Good question. Let me circle back to this. So this model kind of shows the capabilities associated with these new demands for rising customer expectations, for increased compliance, for multi-channel complexity, right? And it shows a kind of increasingly challenging set of capabilities that need to be mastered in order to deliver on those expectations as organizations move through that kind of document and print-centric CCM phase through customer journey management, where the management of multi-channel touch points and analytics starts to come into play, and into that CXM phase, where you're starting to think about total experience, and which doubles down on personalization, on customer centricity, on multi-channel and omni-channel experiences, and also on employee empowerment. But of course, you want to have all these capabilities in place to address these needs. You need to have the right tools. And that's where these aspirations for CXM meet kind of some of the hard truths about technology, right? So today, we estimate that the majority of companies are on old CCM solutions that are, many of them are end of life, end of support, or have no meaningful technology roadmap to drive their capabilities forward. And that is worrying, and that should be, right? And if you're thinking about where your business is today and where it needs to go, I'd say there's kind of three technology-related implications to consider. The first are pure technical aspects, the second are regulatory and compliance needs, and the third are business requirements. But if we kind of start with the business requirements here, business users need and want to be empowered so they can deliver better experiences for customers, which then drive revenue and loyalty and customer advocacy, right? And so with this empowerment, business users want to reduce reliance on IT. They want to have the ability to make rapid changes in kind of an agile way to iterate on their experiences, to improve what works and eliminate what doesn't. They want to, of course, deliver personalized, highly personalized experiences. And they want to meet customer expectations for multi-channel journeys, right? But the challenge is that, many of these technology ecosystems that they have in place have grown up organically over the years, right? They've bought different solutions that were never really intended to work together, or companies merged or acquired other organizations and kind of blended those technology ecosystems together. And it's hard to break away from all of that legacy, right? And it's very hard to rip and replace everything. And so our philosophy at OpenText is actually what we call a composable platform, as opposed to a best of breed approach, right? And a composable platform approach for customer experience really allows you to focus on priorities in customer experience, right? Things like the journey orchestration, personalization, identify areas where you can make technological changes to realize quick wins and maximize time to value, while at the same time laying down a set of technical capabilities that are a foundation for future evolution of your customer engagement capabilities. So you don't have to rip and replace everything. You really take a targeted approach to improving your technology ecosystem. And we're seeing that more and more mature organizations make decisions about technology acquisition through this lens of, will this thing I'm buying create another digital silo that's going to hurt me in the long run, or will it actually be a move towards a more cohesive experience landscape, right? Now, the second point I mentioned was, what are some of the technical considerations to think about? And when you're dealing with legacy solutions that are, end of support, end of life, inherent in that is a lot of security vulnerabilities. not just within the application you're thinking about itself, but within the underlying technology stack that supports it. So operating systems, for example. Right, and that's of course something to really worry about and consider when you're on a version from 5 years ago, right? Also, legacy solutions lack readiness for cloud typically, and this is move to cloud is a common priority as part of enterprises' digital transformation initiatives. So if you're stuck on an older solution, then this means these organizations are missing out on the huge benefits of cloud, particularly cost savings and streamlining opportunities for their business. And the final point I mentioned earlier was regulatory and compliance concerns. And so those technical limitations I mentioned above, like security vulnerabilities, can imply regulatory concerns as well. So good governance, of course, requires you to be on supported software and addressing known security vulnerabilities. And failing to do this is a real compliance and governance risk. Of course, also older legacy software lacking in capabilities also means you may be failing to meet other regulatory requirements and frameworks, such as compliance with EBA, with SOC 2, with ISO, right? So things that you should be aligned with. And additional areas of concern we're seeing in the market is making communications accessible for people with disabilities, right? So it's of course important to treat everyone fairly, and your technology needs to support the range of needs that your customers may have in engaging with you. So I think those are some of the considerations when thinking about, is the technology you have in place today meeting your business needs, not just for today, but where you need to go for the future.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I did have one more point to make, Janet. So now, why now? Why do we think about moving now? I think, historically, migration has been a real risk, right? There's a high level of manual effort and time involved, a huge amount of content to migrate, including, potentially thousands of templates. But we're now at a bit of an inflection point where our capabilities can reduce some of that risk. So technology, including AI, can deliver significant automation. Maybe we see up to 80% of the migration effort sometimes. So automation of content import, automation of template migration, rationalization tools to identify and reduce duplicate templates and other pieces of content, and even automated translation for dealing with multiple languages. So I'd say now's the time to think about moving to a modern solution that delivers business capabilities, supports business transformation, and ensures regulatory compliance. And I'll pause there. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much for organizations to have to think about around their requirements. It's not just technology requirements, their business requirements, regulatory. You also touched upon total experience. The total experience for us at OpenText is a strategy. It's a discipline that combines the customer, employee, and operational experience to achieve customer and employee satisfaction to drive growth. In order to drive the best customer experience, in this case, communication management, we need to ensure employees have the tools that they need to be able to deliver on that promise for their customers. Casper, what are some of the technology considerations around that employee side to drive what's going to happen on the other side of the glass for customers, in your view?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Janet. It's I think in general the whole shift to sort of composable architectures, browser-based software, business user enablement, as you mentioned, very important from a total experience perspective. Those sort of trends really are changing how businesses organize themselves. And I think Bill made a very interesting point. He said a lot of organizations in this space have grown their IT landscape organically, and it's been M&A. I mean, when we sort of engage with clients, when we run them through those sort of maturity assessment, you see time and time again, it's like very complex IT landscapes. It's M&A. There's all types of sort of complexities there that they need to solve. So migration to me is a key fundamental sort of step that is sort of required, and many businesses actually are really dreading it because it's costly, it's risk, that Bill mentioned. So I think it's interesting when you sort of look at this data point here. We asked the question, how do businesses typically go about migration? And 43%, again, this is a global number, 43% of businesses across the world clean their templates manually and then rework them before they migrate them. Now, this number is higher in the Asia Pacific market and some of the Southern European countries. If you go more to the Northern European and more the UK, sort of American Anglo-Saxon market, what you would find is that they already have started to use AI more. So use AI to clean and optimize content, 26%. My guess, if you ask me, in a couple of years' time, this number is switched around for sure, because you look at the speed of change that is happening, you know, in the AI space, the generative AI, those large language models, it's phenomenal. The amount of sort of intelligence that sits there to do just sort of, you know, understand content, understand meaning, looking for sort of rationalization to bring that number down. And also, we'll mention the sort of translation stuff. I mean, some of those large language models, the way they translate, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's really good. It's not 100% perfect, but it's getting very close. So what we're starting to see here is a real reliance on AI to speed up and to bring real productivity gains in this particular area that has always been very costly. Sometimes cost of migration can be 3x the cost of a new license. So it's really, or the cost of new sort of software. So it's really important to get the number down and focusing on sort of AI. Then 60%, they just discard templates, start from scratch. Now, this is not very common, but you would find some industries that are starting to move more to sort of CCM solutions, where they say, well, we just, you know, get rid of typically custom scripts or some sort of VBA macros from invert and really start to sort of, you know, move to scratch. But typically, this is less common. And then replicate existing templates on a new platform. That typically is when there's emergency. So an old system suddenly shutting down, oh, there's a big concern. Let's get stuff up and put it onto a new system. Typically, what you like to do actually is to optimize those templates for modern channels. Lift and shift should be the starting point for a better, a more modernized sort of approach. So what are the key challenges for businesses to sort of do this? I think the key challenge that we see time and time again is the enormous amount of templates that are out there. And some businesses don't have enough. They cannot tell. It's very interesting when you sort of, you know, meet them, or it's so big that they just feel completely overwhelmed. So to me, I mean, there are multiple challenges, as you can see here in this slide, but to me, the scale basically means that you need to use the right technology to do that, but also, you know, you need to find the right partner that has the scale to do this. I think that's another important aspect, because most businesses rely on partners to help them with this migration. Thanks, Anna.
And thank you very much, Casper, for that. And I'd be curious to hear from Pradeep around how to meet these challenges. What are organizations, what are your customers doing to mitigate some of these challenges, Pradeep?
Thank you. Thanks, Janet. I can't agree enough with what Casper just said in terms of the challenges. On one side, we have the absolute necessity to transform and modernize, and on the other side, you know, the doubts in the mind of customers as to, you know, how do we make this happen? Because there's a lot of legacy, right? You know, challenges with respect to typical challenges we have seen, you know, are related to technologies leading to end of life, which means there is an absolute necessity that there needs to be an alternate modern platform, which we looked at, and then, you know, you bring in the total experience capability as you go on this journey. Then comes regulatory needs. We spoke about the need to you know, ensure compliance to regulatory needs, especially when you're communicating, sharing information internally and externally. So that brings its own challenge. Again, depends a lot on you know, capability that platforms provide today. Customers typically are overwhelmed. You know, I'll pick on the first, you know, the biggest challenge that Casper has listed here, which is the sheer volume of templates, which is overwhelming for any customers before they start this journey, right? This is classic experience where we have been involved partnering with a lot of customers because this requires skill. This needs a lot of, experience with respect to what has been done on similar, journeys for other customers and so on and so forth. So totally agree. And, what I can, talk about is what a partner like TCS can help, customers in this journey. First and foremost, I think understanding of how CCM, customer communication, has evolved is extremely important. We have seen the evolution right from the CCM 1.0 we spoke about earlier to where we are today, hand-holding, helping customers on their total experience modernization journey. So we've done this for many, many years. So understand, the need for introduction of automation to swiftly do this migration with ease. So, what are some of the learnings of doing this repeatedly over and over and again? What frameworks can be brought into to the benefit of another customer today in ensuring faster migration? Very important point to note is no one size fits all is not something that we can definitely follow in this modernization journey. That's been our experience. I think understanding of your legacy, which is again in the same domain, understanding of where you want to get to, which is the modern platform on the target side, and understanding of customer business and different communications which get sent out is extremely important. So we are able to tailor an approach to take you from point A to point B. So that's very, very important. Again, in this modernization journey, I'll also talk about some of the initiatives, some of the automation that we have done, some of the capabilities we have built. Those automation capabilities allow you to standardize certain migration, certain steps in the migration and modernizations. So this can actually be run as a factory, and we do it for a lot of customers, right? We feed in the templates, and you'll be able to see the converted templates on the output side. As little manual interventions as possible, so customers who have tens of thousands of templates can look at running this as a factory once we have analyzed the all templates. Industry knowledge is important, especially when we talk so much about the need to meet regulatory requirements consistently and at every possible instant. I think contextual knowledge of the industry, of the domain is extremely important, because that translates into how and what you communicate with your end customers. Last but not the least is the ability to run this at scale. I think Casper mentioned this, right? We run migrations for years together for customers who have many years of legacy which needs to be moved. Even if you run it down as a factory, I think it takes a lot of time, and that has to be run at scale. And with the focus that we have established long-standing talent which can be utilized to run this modernizations. Last but not the least, I think the strategic partnerships that we have with OpenText and analysts and industry veterans like Casper helps a lot, because we are able to bring the best of what's the industry heading to, what is available as technology capability, coupled with the ability to deliver this at scale that a partner like this can bring to modernizations. I think these are what will make it easier, give some breathing time for our customers to say, yes, this can be done. Just before I conclude, I just wanted to leave with everyone here as to how we do it. we emphasize a lot on doing a due diligence. I think, given the age of the legacy, which has been deeply rooted into an organization, I think understanding of what sits in the legacy is extremely important. You don't have utilities which you run which can automatically start delivering on day zero. So I think we spend a lot of time and effort in understanding legacy, and also mapping to what type of gaps exist today in reaching your to be state, if I may, right? Whatever we spoke about in the total experience towards the end, bringing in generative AI capabilities, multi-channel, omni-channel capabilities, and so on and so forth. I think those are all mandatory, if I may. I mean, they are not good to have anymore. They are mandatory. I think it has to be fed into what we need to deliver, and then come up with a roadmap, come up with a journey map, that takes you from where you are currently to where you intend to be over a period of time. This is predominantly powered by some of the capabilities that we have built. Like I said, repeatedly doing this from various customers over and over again. Some examples of doing this using our frameworks and tools are related to comparison of templates. Looking at what the possibility of automation in a particular organization. Most of the templates that in our experience we have seen is around static content, which is a classic candidate for automation. There is a lot of tables, templates, forms, which are standard across. Again, can be automated. Once you identify candidates for automation, I think it is about running some of our tools to ensure that those automations are delivered. We have experience of having 90 to 95% of automation when it comes to static content migrations from legacy to target. Forms rationalization. Again, most of our engagements, when we start having the conversation, I think we get overwhelmed by the number of current templates which exist. But once we complete this journey for a customer, 30-40% of forms we see are redundant or duplicates, which are potential candidates for rationalization. And so duplications can be avoided. Bring in the consistency, again, it leads to compliance, ensuring there is standard communication across any of the processes. So I think analyzing forms is very important, like I said, in the understanding the legacy, and also how we can meet those in the target state. Lastly, template generation can also be automated in our view. Creation of templates, with the utilities that we have, we can look at potential opportunities for automation of template generation. Lastly, like I said, we can run this as a factory. Once we have analyzed, once we have identified candidates for automation and modernizations, I think we can definitely deliver this as a factory at scale. That's how we do it, and this is a proven model, successful model that we follow in each and every modernization that we take our customers through.
So valuable. Pradeep, thank you so much for sharing TCS's key tenets for modernization, and also this migration and modernization framework here. And so as partners to TCS OpenText, familiar with this certainly. Will, would you add anything to what Pradeep has shared here? Just all this really.
Yeah, Janet, I'd love to make a couple quick points. So, I mean, sure. I think one thing to note is, if you're relying on your team internally who are keeping the lights on to also build the future, there's a real risk that that team can get distracted from that modernization project as high priority items come up. And I think one of the points of value a partner can bring is they're always going to be focused on continuing that modernization project and making sure it happens. So I think that's an important distinction to make. The second thing I'd say, and looking at this slide here with this migration methodology and framework, is don't bring all your junk with you to your new world, right? Take it as an opportunity to really reassess all of those templates and content and practices that have grown up over time, kind of organically, and think about stripping them back and streamlining them. And again, a partner can perhaps provide some of that outside perspective of ways you can do things differently and ways you can be more efficient.
Terrific. And I know that you, Casper, with Aspire, have worked with small, medium, and enterprise customers. What are you seeing around the how?
Yeah, exactly. So to me, when we was talking in Pradeep, I had to think about a client that like years ago, this lady mentioned, she said, I'm on a transformation program. And she said, I've found it very difficult to get funding. So the best I could do is to get, this approved. But it's essentially, it has become a 7 years migration project. And then you sort of think about this, and you think about the speed of change that is happening in the world. And you think about ChatGPT that just came along, like in November last year, and suddenly it has really fundamentally changed a lot of thoughts about how we think about content and migration and productivity. And then you're like, if you're 5 years into that sort of migration and then something significant like this happens, then you can basically start from scratch again. And that's why, if you look at this, if you need to go for migration, do it fast, get the right partner, get people that can do this at scale, and use the right best practice. It's very important. And we see this in our research. 71% of businesses across the world say, we rely on a partner to get this done. It's more than 70%. It's the better way of going about this, because your organization typically doesn't have these type of skills. So that's what we see. Do it fast, get a partner, and use best practice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It is a journey, isn't it, Casper? It's not something that you need help from your friends. So I like that. 70% of organization, according to Casper and Aspire's research, are going to partners to assist them with this journey. We do have. I love this discussion, and first we talked about the imperative for modernization, for the transformation, CCM to CXM. Then we moved into the central role that technology plays. And then finally, we're ending off here now talking about the approaches, the tenets, how to get there, what are the steps that need to be taken. We do have a couple of questions from the audience, so that's terrific. Let me read out the first one for our panel. Okay, let's see, here we go. The question is, CXM promises seems to be related to CRM, contact center, and data technologies. What's your vision of CXM technologies in this larger context? So I'm going to put it out to you first, Casper.
Great. Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. Yeah, I love the question. So it's, to me, customer experience management is all about making sure that as a brand, you basically help customers to get a better perspective about you, right? So it's about increasing the perception that customers have about you as a brand. And there are multiple ways of achieving this. So if you remember my life cycle diagram, it's marketing communications as well as sort of promotional or sort of transactional communications. Now, customer experience management in the context of technology, we've seen a lot of technology coming in, focusing on the customer experience, on the marketing technology side. So it's no surprise, that people who sort of, come into this space say, hey, we see a lot of CX mentioned by sort of, CRM systems, by contact center, by data analytics. So all that stuff is really important. However, if you think about that CX is all about changing the perception that customers have, there is a really strong case to say you also need to include the transaction on the back office communications. Because I've seen this time and time again. If you talk to marketers, they basically are, they get their bonuses, their KPIs, their objectives is about customer acquisition or customer retention. Those are typically their key sort of focus areas. How to sell more to existing customers, how to get more people into the funnel. However, if you sort of look at the wider context, if I'm a customer of an insurance business and I want to make an address change, and I cannot do that using my digital device, I have to download a form, I have to print it out, I need to fill this out by hand, send it to them. That's a very bad customer experience for me. I would go to a company that I would feel is more digitally sort of native or more digitally aligned. And that is, I think, the change that we see happening now in the market space, where CXM is a very broad sort of segment of technologies. We can define sort of sub-segments where all that stuff comes together. So in that sense, CCM is evolving into a subcomponent of that CX space. But yeah, in order to do this, if you want to sort of offer multiple channels to your customers to make an address change easy, you have to have the right data practice in place. You need to understand what their customer preferences are. You need to be able to sort of define that in a journey. So in essence, we see a lot of enterprises and clients now talk to us and say, hey, how can we bring the marketing tech stack in alignment with the CCM stack? How can we build a sort of overarching CXM sort of strategy? So I would encourage you to take a broader perspective on this and not focusing purely on the marketing side of things.
I can also add.
Yes, please.
End of the day, I think CXM and CRM sit, very close to each other, right? There's a lot of inputs which go into the CXM. The data actually comes from your CRM. So I think, it is an extension of CRM. It is the way you communicate with the data, with the accurate information that sits in your CRM. I think that's what makes, CRM successful. That's what, CXM is a driver which will take your CRM, to the intended target audience more effectively and efficiently.
I'd agree with what Pradeep and Casper said. It's about linking together all these pieces of your ecosystem there, right? So if someone, has a problem with your communication or they can't understand it, what are they going to do? They're eventually going to wind up in the contact center, right? And if you think about that total experience concept, it's not just about the customer communication, it's also about that employee experience. That person in the contact center needs to be able to help that customer efficiently and effectively. And so if they have to jump around between 20 disparate systems to serve that customer, and none of those were really designed to work together, they've got 3 monitors, 20 different windows up, it's not a great employee experience, and it's not a great customer experience. You can't have a great customer experience without a good employee experience. So I think you've got to really think about how these things join up. Another thing about the contact center, right? It's great, right? People call you up all day long and tell you what's wrong with your business, right? And if you can just leverage that, you've got a great source of ways you can improve. The challenge is it's hard to listen to all those calls. We can help you listen to 100% of your calls. So that's something to, to think about when you're considering analytics and how that impacts improving employee and customer experience.
Well, I'd like to thank the question poster for that. You definitely had the right panel and experts to provide some thoughts, and hopefully that provided some insights for not only the question poster, but everyone else. Thank you all. We do have time for one more question, so I'm going to pose it to you all now. And that is, there seems to be a compelling case for modernization. Yeah. In your experience, do customers recognize this? And which of the barriers is most often experienced? Maybe I'll start with you, Pradeep.
Sure. I think, customers definitely appreciate the need to do it. Understand there is a necessity to do it. There's a compelling case, therefore, for them to modernize, which is, I don't think there's even an argument in the mind of a customer that they need to do it, and now is the right time to do it. I'll go back to some of the challenges we discussed earlier, which are primary barriers that typically play up in the mind. The most common one that we have seen as a partner with customers is the sheer volume of communications which reside in the legacy today, right? It is the ease with which we we can take the customers. It's the comfort that we can give through all of those processes that I spoke about earlier. That this particular barrier of I have too many to move. Is this going to be successful? So I think giving them the comfort and confidence in terms of ensuring success and taking them on this journey is very, very important through all of those measures I spoke about here. The other barriers, of course, are data sitting in silos. Again, going back to the question earlier on CRM versus CXM, how we could support each other. I think ensuring data accuracy, ensuring data is secure when it comes to consumption for a communication is important. So some of these drivers, are going to help the customers move through those barriers. I think, Janet. I think we can go on and on, but in the interest of time, I'll pass it back to you, Janet.
Thank you, Pradeep. Casper, I'll give you the last word on this around what our customers agreeing that there is a need here, and what's the biggest barrier. If you can, we have about 30 seconds, and then we'll wrap it up. Please.
Thank you. Yeah, what I see often is a disconnect between top management saying we have to do this, we have to be customer experience focused, and then the people in the trenches saying, but then how? How do we do this? How can we actually execute on this in a good way? And how can we connect our CCM strategy to this top level CX sort of strategy set by the top? And I think that's a key challenge, because if you don't figure that out, very quickly you revert back to cost and risk reduction. You say, we can do this, we can go to digital to reduce print cost. However, there's so many more benefits as we discussed. It's really important to understand those and to use them in your businesses.
Wonderful. That is a great note to end on. And again, thank you to the question poster. I'm really delighted to offer all of you folks who attended this webinar today a complimentary OpenText customer experience maturity review. This is an opportunity for your organization to get with our business value consulting team, business value engineers, to conduct a workshop with your lines of business to understand where you are at with respect to your CX maturity, where you want to be, and then start to work with you on how to close that gap. So after this event, you will be sent a recording of this webinar panel, as well as a form for those of you who are interested in learning more about this CX maturity review. So we hope we get to see a lot of you for that next step. I would like to thank our panel. I really learned a lot today. We know the future of customer communication is likely to be shaped by several trends. We heard about acceleration to consumer digital adoption, accelerating the use of personalization, omnichannel communication, and a focus on the back office processes. As technology continues to evolve in this space, these trends are likely to become even more critical, and companies that are able to leverage them effectively will have a significant advantage in the marketplace and deliver an exceptional customer experience for their customers. I hope you enjoyed our webinar, and I want to say thank you to our esteemed panel, Casper, Pradeep, and Will. The recording of the webinar will be sent out, as I said, to all attendees, as well as the sign-up form if you're interested in learning more about our CX maturity review for your organization. For now, from OpenText and Aspire and TCS, we wish you a very good day, and thanks for joining us.